In medieval England, the punishment for high treason was so gruesome it became legendary, being drawn and quartered. Imagine this: a condemned man tied to a wooden hurdle and dragged through filthy streets, jeered at by the crowd, before even reaching the scaffold. By the time he arrived, bloodied and bruised, the worst was still to come. First came the hanging, but not to death. The rope would strangle him only until he slipped into unconsciousness. Then, with a swift cut, he was brought back to agony. His body was opened, and his entrails pulled out before his very eyes. The executioner often burned the organs as the victim still screamed. Finally, his head was severed, his body hacked into 4 pieces, and each part sent to different corners of the realm. This was not just punishment, it was theater. The king wanted everyone to see what happened to those who betrayed the crown. A single death became a national warning, written in blood and horror. The Iron Maiden is one of the most infamous torture devices associated with the Middle Ages, though historians debate whether it was truly used in that era or invented later. Still, its legend speaks volumes about how people imagined medieval cruelty. Picture a tall, coffin-shaped cabinet made of iron, with a heavy door lined with long, sharp spikes. The victim was forced inside, standing upright, as the door swung shut. The spikes were positioned with surgical precision, piercing the flesh but not killing instantly. Instead, the victim was left bleeding slowly, standing upright in a coffin of iron, unable to move as pain became unbearable. Even if it never saw widespread use, the very idea of the Iron Maiden shows the fascination with pain and spectacle. It became a symbol of medieval darkness, a haunting reminder that sometimes the stories we tell about torture are as powerful as the torture itself. Few punishments were as excruciatingly slow as death by boiling. Introduced in parts of Europe for crimes like poisoning or counterfeiting, the condemned was placed into a large cauldron, sometimes of water, sometimes of oil, wine, or even molten lead. The heat was turned up gradually, ensuring that death did not come quickly. Witnesses described skin blistering, flesh peeling, and screams echoing for hours. In England, Henry VIII briefly legalized boiling alive for poisoners. In Germany and the Low Countries, records mention criminals boiled in vats of pitch. What made this punishment so terrifying was not just the pain, but the duration. Unlike a sword stroke or an arrow, boiling killed slowly, while the victim's agony was put on full display. It was the kind of execution people remembered for the rest of their lives. Of all medieval executions, the breaking wheel was perhaps the most public and humiliating. The condemned was tied spread-eagle to a massive wooden wheel. Then came the hammer. One by one, the executioner shattered the victim's arms and legs with iron clubs, breaking bones so they bent grotesquely out of shape. The wheel was then hoisted upright, and the broken body was left to hang in agony, displayed for all to see. In some cases, death did not come for days. Birds pecked at the living flesh while villagers passed by. In France and the Holy Roman Empire, the breaking wheel became infamous as a punishment for murderers and bandits. Its horror was not only in the suffering it caused, but in the spectacle. A mangled human body, twisted around the spokes, left as a stark message. Crime would be punished with torment beyond imagination. Burning at the stake is perhaps the most iconic of medieval deaths. Used for heresy, witchcraft, or treason, it was designed to purify the soul with fire while horrifying the crowd. The condemned was bound to a wooden post, surrounded by a pile of dry kindling. When the flames were lit, smoke billowed first, choking the victim before the fire truly took hold. Some accounts describe the skin blackening, cracking, and peeling, while the victim still writhed in pain. In other cases, executioners tied bags of gunpowder to the victim's body to hasten death with a sudden blast. One of the most famous victims was Joan of Arc, who was burned in Rouen in 1431, accused of heresy after leading French troops to victory. Witnesses said she called upon God until her final breath. Her ashes were thrown into the Seine, as if even her memory needed to be destroyed. Burning was both punishment and message: challenge authority, and be consumed by fire. Though not European in origin, the story of scaphism spread through medieval chronicles and became one of the most dreaded tales of human cruelty. The condemned was trapped between two hollowed-out planks, their body covered in milk and honey. Force-fed, until they vomited, they were left floating on a stagnant pond or swamp. The sweet coating attracted insects, flies, wasps, and worms, which swarmed and burrowed into the victim's flesh. Over days, sometimes weeks, the body rotted alive, while the person remained conscious in unimaginable agony. Ancient sources describe scaphism as reserved for traders of the Persian Empire, but the tale lived on in Europe as a story of ultimate torture. Whether exaggerated or not, it haunted medieval imagination. A death so slow and so vile that even hell itself seemed preferable. In an age where the plague had made rats a symbol of terror, stories of execution by rats captured the darkest fears of the Middle Ages. The method was simple, yet horrifying. A cage filled with hungry rats was strapped against a prisoner's body. The rats, frantic and desperate, began gnawing through skin and muscle, trying to escape. In some versions, hot coals were placed on top of the cage, driving the rats deeper into the victim's flesh. While evidence for its widespread use is scarce, the image of rats devouring a living body became a powerful metaphor in folklore and chronicles. It was the kind of tale whispered in dungeons and courtrooms alike. Not only a punishment, but a nightmare made flesh. In a world already terrified by disease, the idea of rats eating you alive struck at the heart of medieval horror. One of the strangest and most disturbing instruments of pain was the pear of anguish. This metal device, shaped like a fruit, was inserted into a victim's mouth, rectum, or vagina. With each turn of a screw, the pear expanded, stretching flesh, tearing muscle, and sometimes shattering bone. Some accounts describe its use on women accused of witchcraft or on men accused of sodomy. Others suggest it was more a tool of intimidation than execution. But its existence alone was terrifying enough. The pear did not always kill. Victims might survive, but mutilated, humiliated, and broken. In the imagination of the medieval world, the pear of anguish embodied the very essence of torture. Silent, hidden, and devastatingly personal. It was less about public spectacle and more about private torment. And that, in some ways, made it even worse. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button for more illustrated facts of humanity and comment down your impressions about the torture methods in the Middle Ages.